All right. Well, can you see my screen? I probably need to show that. All right. Well, thank you for being here this afternoon. My name is Scott Sponholtz. I want to talk about how to live on a financial aid budget and how to make your financial aid last throughout the year, whether that's a 10-month year, whether it's year-round, just trying to be purposeful with the money that you receive. So I'm going to talk about the cost of attendance, what's included in that, how we build that each year, and then definitely spend a lot of time on how to build your spending plan, because everybody's different in terms of what kind of money they have, expenses. There's a number of different ways to track the incoming and outgoing, and talk about some tips that I have and that I've heard from other students, and maybe where to go if you want some website help and further information. So the cost of attendance, we build that for each year of the medical program. So for each year, there are specific expenses, and we build one for Kansas residents, we build a second one for non-resident students. And then I would say most of our students are living off campus, not with their parents. And so that's what I'm gonna focus on today. But if you are living with your parents, the budgets are a little smaller because we're assuming that if your parents do charge you rent or something like that, it's a smaller amount than it would be if you were living in an apartment or sharing a house with a number of roommates. So the biggest difference would be the tuition and fees. Those of you from out of state are acutely aware that it's almost twice as expensive per year for the tuition and fees. So anywhere from about $39,000 to $68,000 per year. And then we also include your room and board, so your rent, utilities, things like that, your personal expenses, your clothing, things like that, transportation, so maintenance on your car, tolls, gas, and then books and supplies, and then finally loan fees. So if you borrow federal loans, the government takes out anywhere from about 1% to 4% of what you receive. So you don't receive the full 100%. And so we calculate what on average medical students are charged, and then we add that in so that way you're not $400 short. So for the first year, you're looking at anywhere from about $64,000 to $93,000 per year. As a second year student, tuition, living expenses are the same. So you're in school 10 months out of the year, each of the first 2 years. But there are some specific exams. So you will sign up for your step 1. And so we give you about $900 for that. Or I'm sorry, $900 for review materials for step 1. A little over $600 also to enroll for the STEP exam. And so still overall pretty similar, $65,000 to $94,000. Once you go into years 3 and 4, you're in school year round. So you'll notice the room and board is higher, personal expenses, transportation, again, for those extra 2 months per year. Third years do enroll in step 2, and you also will need some materials then to start studying. So then you're looking at $70,000 to $100,000 per year. And then finally in the 4th year, again, the room and board, personal expenses are 12 months. Then we give you money for residency interviews, so to buy airfare, hotel, getting to and from the airport is about $4,500. And then applying for residency, we give you a little over $800 for all those application fees that add up quickly, and money to actually go to the Step 2 exam, because there's only a couple locations around the country. So again, you're over 70,000 and over 100,000 for that last year. So each year, we're going to try to give you the money that you need that exactly matches your expenses for that year. So once you have that, then you can start creating your spending plan. And certainly different people have different reasons why they want to create a spending plan. Certainly it's a great goal if you can find a way to just borrow what you need. These loans that you're borrowing in medical school do accrue interest from the time that you receive them. So typically you get half in the fall semester, the other half in the spring, and interest will start accruing once those fall disbursements and spring disbursements start. And so if you can borrow less, that will save you money that's accruing in interest. Certainly it's a great time in your life if you haven't budgeted before to start developing those good habits. So if you can start now, once you're a resident, start to make a little bit of money, and then certainly by the time you are a practicing doctor and have significantly more income, hopefully you'll have that experience and that time to develop that good habit. And I know for a lot of people, they think, hey, when I start making more money, that'll be the time that I'll be motivated to make a change. But if you're having trouble budgeting when you're a college student, that can often then translate as an adult, as a practicing doctor, and that can cause problems as well. And then certainly for the first 2 years, when you're in school for 10 months, you don't get living expenses for the 2 months that you're out of school. And so knowing that, if you're not able to work, or if you're not taking an elective, then this is a good time to start planning for those 2 months. How can you use your 10 months, spread it out over a 12-month time period? And so kind of the main thing is to be in control of your money. For some people, it's not until the end of the month that you realize, oh shoot, I don't have as much left over. I don't have any left over. And if you're making sure that the money is doing what you want it to do, hopefully that causes less stress in your life. So when you look at expenses, for a lot of people, the easier parts are those fixed expenses, your rent. If you have a car payment, in some cases you might be on average billing for your utilities. And so those come in every single month, and that's often what people think of most frequently. To a certain extent, people might be good at figuring out what their food expenses are. They have a good idea of how much I spend at the grocery store, how often I eat out, but not always. It's easy to not realize how often you're eating out. Certainly you might buy clothing every so often, pay for going out to the movies, going to concerts, things like that. But often the hardest ones to remember are the ones that happen irregularly. So buying gifts. I have an extended family, and it seems like everybody has a birthday in June. And so if you're not planning for that ahead of time, oh my gosh, I have all these gifts. How am I going to make that work? You know, oil changes, car tags, and things like that are things that don't come up very often. And so I often tell people to give yourself 3 months, sometimes 6 months of a budget before you find one that is a little more static. And the reason for that are for those intermittent expenses that it takes a while to realize how many birthdays or holidays you're buying gifts for, to uncover those car maintenance types of things, so that you can plan for those, set those money aside so that it is available during those months when you need it. On the other side of the equation is the money that's coming in. We'll call it income, but certainly not all of it is income. Financial aid by no means is income, but it is money for our purposes that is coming into you. So things like loans, scholarships, if you have veteran affairs benefits, or things like that. In some cases, family might be willing to help out with things. Maybe your family is willing to help out with your gas money or to buy your books, something like that. Maybe they've saved up a 529 plan or able to help a little bit. And then some med school students will work. Certainly if you are a first-year student, I highly encourage you to maybe talk with some of your classmates, and certainly talk to people like Angela Gosserand, Lucy Kohlhoff, Allie Turner, to get a sense of how many hours they might recommend. So I would start off low, maybe 10 hours a week. Certainly if you find that you have extra time, you can always bump it up, but the workload and study load is much increased as a medical student, and that 2-week cycle comes by really quickly, and you don't want to have work causing you to fall behind in school. It's really hard to get caught up in a 2-week study period. So looking at financial aid, for the 2020-21 year, we provide a little over $2,300 per month. And again, during years 1 and 2, you're getting $2,300 a month while you're in school, so for 10 months. If you need to stretch that out to 12 months for years 1 and 2, I think the math comes out to $1,800 or $1,900 per month over a 12-month period. And then years 3 and 4, you're in school year round, so you get that $2,300 a month for each of the 12 months. We do arrive at that by surveying students. We just did one about a year and a half ago. And based on that, then the other 2 or 3 years in the cycle, we'll look at federal data for the Midwest, and maybe they say gas prices are going down X%, but rent's going up, and so we make those adjustments. So we do appreciate when we do have those surveys, your feedback, because that helps us to really hone in our numbers and try to be as accurate as we can here in the Kansas City, Wichita, and Salina areas. But when you're looking at budgeting, you know, where the rubber really meets the road is tracking it. There's no replacement for figuring out what's coming in and what's going out. Certainly debit cards or credit card statements are one way that you can track it. Some people use online resources or apps, and those can be very handy. But the caution I would say is how do people use that data? So if it's your bank, that's one thing, but if you're using an app, are they potentially selling that information to others? Some of the apps then link all kinds of accounts. So some apps can link your checking account and your credit card and different things, and that is all handy, but are you then exposing all kinds of data to one company who then you need to check with the way that they use that and protect your privacy and feel comfortable that they use 2-factor authentication, that they require passwords that are harder to break, that sort of thing. And so using a mobile device can be helpful because you have it right there with you. Some people use notebooks or Excel spreadsheets or different things like that. There's even a cash-based system. So taking out money, assigning it to different categories, and then using that cash as you spend it. And that gives you immediate feedback. So mobile apps are great, but again, you have to enter that Excel spreadsheet. So it's one thing to have the budget set up, but you need to reconcile it to really get a handle on, am I accurate on my budget, or is it in practice different than what I have on paper? And then to be able to react to that, to say, hey, I thought it was costing me $150 a week for my groceries, but every week I'm spending $175 or $200. Do I need to increase that category, or do I just need to rein in and do a shopping list before I go to the store? So an example that I would use, so first or second year students get a little over $42,000 in unsubsidized loans per year. And in the fall disbursement, I would show that that's a little over $21,000. And as you can see, it says after origination fee. So those unsubsidized loans, the government takes out a little over 1% of, I can only call it as a processing fee. So you get a little less than what you borrowed. And then I'm assuming in this case, this person has $1,000 per year for a scholarship, so they get $500. So they're getting $21,634. And in this example, this student is a in-state student. So between the tuition and campus fee, they're spending almost $19,500. We're estimating about $600 in the fall for books and supplies. So this student has $21,634 in aid. Their expenses, their direct expenses are $20,000. So they're getting almost a $1,600 refund. But the student may need, again, about $2,350 a semester, or I'm sorry, a month for living expenses. So one way to kind of put this together would be this KU Med spending plan worksheet that we have online. So let me show you how that works and how you navigate there. So if you come to the financial aid part of the KU Med website, so kumc.edu and then /financial aid, over here on the left, there is a financial literacy link, which is the third one down. And then there's budgeting tools here in the center. And then there's the 2020-21 KU Med spending plan worksheet. And so it's going to pull up an Excel document that then you can use to track income and expenses. So in the upper left hand corner, it says annual income. And again, income is maybe not entirely accurate for our purposes because financial aid is not money, it has to be repaid. But we're going to input how much is coming in after origination fees. So this student is getting $22,134. So that person has $1,000 from a scholarship, and they have the $42,722 unsubsidized loan. And let's say in this example, maybe this person has a family that has another $1,000 that they're willing to provide per year. So it's going to total it to say $23,134 per year, and then the monthly amount is $1,928. So far so good. If you go to the right-hand side, our expenses. So we're going to first look at the annual direct expenses. So tuition is $38,720. The campus fee for a Wichita student is $692 per year. And then books, we're going to estimate at $1,200 per year. So off the bat, this person has a little over $40,000 in expenses, only $23,000 in income or financial aid. And so under this surplus or deficit, it's saying now we're short about $1,400 per month and about $17,000 over the 12 months. But we're not done yet. We also have monthly expenses. So in this first column on the left, it will tell you what our financial aid budget has per month. So for instance, $702 for rent, $557 for food. And this is based on, again, our survey during certain years, and then each year we adjust for kind of Midwest increases or decreases. So I'm going to, this is in the center, your actual monthly expenses is where you will enter what you are spending. So let's say you're spending $600 a month on rent. So that is less than the $702 that we budget. So it's showing in black that you are saving yourself $102 a month. So that's great. Let's say you are spending $600 a month in food, and that's more than the $557. It's going to give you a red parentheses to say that you're spending $43 more per month than what we budget. And that's okay. Each of these categories are fluid. So you're saving yourself $102 in rent. So you spend a little 43 more in food, but you're still coming out ahead compared with our living expenses. So I'm just going to fill in some other ones just to show you how this works. So it'll total at each category. So the first one's room and board. So KU Med would say maybe $1,547 per month. Your actual expenses are $1,480 per month, so you're saving yourself about $67. We also have personal medical expenses, so your medical, laundry, health insurance, clothing, things like that. And so I'm just going to be a little lazy here and just say that you're spending $600 per month in that category. And then at the bottom would be the transportation, so your gas, maintenance, parking. And again, I'm going to be lazy and say that's $200 per month. And then down at the bottom, below that would be optional expenses. So credit card payments, car payments. Those are two areas that for financial aid, we're not allowed to include in the cost of attendance. But for some students, those are actual expenses that you have. And so if you are spending $100 a month on a credit card and maybe $250 on car payments, you're not going to find those in the other parts, but those are going to deduct $350 out of your monthly budget. And so you want to account for that and find out, instead of living on $2,350 a month, in this case, the student would need to live off of $2,000 a month just to make sure that they're not overspending. And so at the very bottom in this gray, it's showing that this person is $280 a month over what our cost of attendance would include. So that is making things a little more difficult. But if you come back to the surplus deficit, so we've done all the work now, it's saying that you have about $4,000 a month deficit, almost $4,100, or $49,000 per year. So if you recall, we only borrowed a unsubsidized loan and getting a scholarship But there are Grad Plus loans, KU endowment loans, private lenders. So there are ways that you could borrow. So by filling out this spreadsheet would let you know maybe you need about $49,000 a year for a Grad Plus loan or a private loan. So you could use this spending worksheet to tell you what you need to borrow. So instead of just asking our office for the maximum, this one will, doing this work will hopefully keep you from borrowing more than you need to. If you do find out that you have borrowed up to the cost of attendance, then filling this out is going to be helpful to figure out what can you do. So you would start off maybe by looking at these categories that have red parentheses, so food, utilities, things like that, personal, medical, and transportation. So these are going to tell you where, again, it doesn't mean if you're spending $600 in food, that's a bad thing, but here's some areas that maybe you're spending more than other students. And so are there ways that you could reduce that? Or could you get a roommate to help reduce your rent even further, things like that. What I want to draw your attention to is there are some categories that you can get some additional financial aid. So over here on the left-hand side of our financial aid website, there's a forms section. And if you click on that, we do have at the bottom under the appeal section, we have money for a computer purchase, for dependent care, vehicle repair are probably the most common ones. And so those are ways that we could potentially give you additional increase in the cost of attendance and potentially allow you to borrow more for those. But if those do not apply, then, and you're spending more than what the cost of attendance allows, you're probably going to want to meet with someone in financial aid, and we can go over your budget with you and maybe strategize ways to decrease your expenses so that you're not putting things on credit cards. I want to pause for a moment and see if you have questions about that tool or kind of tracking expenses, where to find your cost of attendance, those sorts of things.
No questions.
All right. Well, I will move on. So some tips about how to make this financial aid last then. And certainly it's, trying to reduce your spending. I know for a lot of people, they think, hey, if I get a raise, that's going to solve my problems. But kind of like maybe with weight loss and that sort of thing, you can always spend, it's always easier to spend more than it is to earn extra money, just as it is always easier to kind of put calories in than it is to exercise or reduce calories on the outside going out. So I know for a lot of students, especially these days, kind of taking a look at all of your subscription services. It's really easy, now that cable TV is not as popular, a lot of these apps and services were supposed to reduce our cable bills, but now there's so many of them. There's Netflix and Apple, and I use Sling TV, which is an internet-based one. Trying to think what else I have, but it's starting to add up, just like a real cable bill, and so being honest with yourself and looking at, do I use all of those, or are there some that I just use a little bit? Do I just need to binge watch for a month and then cancel it for a month? There's the food delivery services, magazines, music subscription services. So really looking at those, seeing, are there free alternatives? There are lots of free TV and movie services, certainly not always the most current movies, but maybe enough that, hey, I only have a couple days every 2 weeks that I can even really watch TV. So maybe that suffices for you. One that I encourage people is to look at your cell phone service. A lot of people have the main companies, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile/Sprint, but many of those companies allow what are called mobile virtual services. And those services essentially buy bulk cell phone service. So they buy, I don't know, $1 million worth of access to those big companies. And then they sell that service to customers at a reduced price. So you are using Sprint or you're using Verizon or AT&T, but it's through another company. And those companies often don't have physical stores. In some cases, maybe they don't even have phone numbers you can call in. Sometimes it's just you can chat online with customer service. And those are some of the ways that they charge less money. And then sometimes you are deprioritized. So because you're paying less, if you're at a concert and a whole bunch of people are trying to use their cell phone, maybe your service gets slowed down, or maybe you don't get service. And the people that are paying the $100 a month are the ones that get the better service. But maybe that serves you just as well. Oftentimes you can spend $25, $30, maybe $40 for unlimited data and voice and texting. And so it's a great way to save some money there. Try to buy your clothes on sale or buy them secondhand even. Definitely Student Life is a great source for free events. They kind of scour what's going on and provide different activities for you all. But the kind of bigger stuff that's harder but can help out even more, trying to eat at home. Eating out by far can knock down your budget. For my wife and I, we found out we were eating out at Subway when we were college students way too often, and even splitting a $5 footlong, when you do that 8 or 10 times a month, that adds up. And getting a roommate, trying to split the cost of sharing, essentially, splitting the cost of things like kitchens and bathrooms and living rooms so that you're not paying for all of that by yourself. And then maybe looking at either getting an inexpensive car, biking to school. Those are some different ways. And trying to remember to reduce your exposure to temptation. So for me, I need to really minimize how often I go to Costco or to Best Buy, because I can wander around those stores and find stuff that I didn't know I needed. And if I stay away from there, then I don't know that it's out there, and in some cases I do not need it. Trying to track all of this is difficult. And so a couple different ways to do this. One would be to set up maybe your financial aid refund to just go to your savings account, and then have an automatic transfer every month from your savings account to your checking account. So that way, if you see that I only have $2,000 in my checking account, I'm going to try to stay on that budget. Whereas if you get your full refund in your checking account, maybe you get $10,000 up front. And so it's easy to think, oh, I've got $10,000, and not realize that's supposed to last you 5 months. And so by October, oh shoot, I have 3/4 of that spent. How am I going to live off of $2,500 during October, November, and December? things can get a little dicier then. Setting up online bill pay to make sure you don't get charged late fees. Talked about the cash only or envelope system, and for my wife and I, that's really what was the most helpful. Apps are convenient, but I still had to enter the information, so it's easy to just say, oh, I'll do that when I get home, or I'll do that this weekend, and before you know it, the month's up and you haven't been tracking it. But with the envelope system, we had a physical way of carrying the money. So once a week, once a month, whatever you want to do, we had categories. So we had eating out, we had groceries, we had entertainment. And so I went to the bank and got money and put that in all of those categories. And so when I wanted to go eat out, I would take money out of the dining out category and then use that to pay for everything. And so you get immediate feedback. So when we were eating out at Subway frequently, all of a sudden when that part of the envelope was getting shorter and shorter, it was giving us that feedback that, wow, we are eating out a lot. So it's Wednesday on a 2-week budget and we've spent half of our eating out. That puts that in our face to say, do we need to increase the dining out? And if so, where's that money coming from? What other category? Or do I just need to be aware that we need to track how often we're eating out? And people have found that you spend maybe 13 to 16% more per month by putting things on credit cards, just because you don't have that feedback. You don't realize, oh, you ate out an extra time, you got a couple extra cups of coffee, you stopped off someplace to buy some clothes, whatever the case is. You don't realize that till the end of the month. And then certainly, using coupons. A lot of grocery stores now make it easy, even when you use their app. You can get digital coupons. Certainly using those digital apps or going to the grocery store website helps you to find only what you need, so you don't go to that clearance section that maybe might have a good deal but may also have stuff that you didn't intend to shop for. You can see how much you're spending before you get to the checkout line, and so you can get that immediate feedback and say, ooh, that's about $50 more than what I expected. Maybe I can put off buying this steak until a week or two from now. Maybe it'll go on sale. Those are some good strategies to use. So some other things that maybe are kind of some hidden costs over your lifetime are the interest rates on the loans that you're borrowing. So for a lot of students, they're borrowing loans to help pay for these things. So there's the amount that you borrow, but for Grad Plus, it's 5.3% in interest every year. And so if you borrow $10,000 as a first-year student, over the 4 years, that's $2,120. And then if you borrow that again as a second year, that's another almost $1,600 in interest by the time you graduate. And so if you borrow 4 years of loans, it's $40,000 plus another $5,300 in interest. So the good news is that interest is simple while you're in school. Simple interest means for that $10,000, it always calculates back on that original amount. So at simple interest, that $10,000 is adding $530 every single year. Compound interest is what happens after the graduation and 6 months of the grace period is over. And so what happens is it takes the principal, the $10,000 you borrowed, and adds in the $530 in interest that you had after the end of 1 year. And so now it's taking 5.3% of the total amount, so the $10,530. And so interest then starts growing faster at that point. The unsubsidized loans have a lower interest rate, so that is good news. And that's good news because, in part, for a lot of students, the unsubsidized loan is probably the bigger of the two. Although now that the cost of attendance is increasing, some of the Grad Pluses are starting to get closer to the unsubsidized loan amounts. But this example is showing that students, if you're just borrowing the maximum unsubsidized loan for each year, it's adding almost another $19,000 in interest. And so students might graduate with close to $200,000 of loan debt. And I apologize, I put Grad Plus, that should say unsubsidized loan at the bottom there. One thing I will mention is that interest rates are not accruing through the end of December right now due to COVID. There have been some executive actions that have meant that no federal loans are accruing interest at the moment. So that is great news. And if that changes beyond December 31st, we can let you know that. The second thing that I would let you know is that here in 2020-21, interest rates are significantly lower than they have been over the past couple years. And the interest rates are fixed. So the loans that you are borrowing in 20-21 are fixed over the life of the loan, and you're locking in that good interest rate. A year ago, loans borrowed in 2019-20, those were a little over 6% unsubsidized and a little over 7% Grad Plus. And so the loans this year are saving students about $100 in interest per year for every $10,000 that they borrow. So it's saving some students $700 to maybe as much as $1,000 per year in interest. So thank you, economy, for having low interest rates at the moment. All right, the last thing I'd like to maybe just highlight are some of the websites and different ways to get a handle on things. So I did show you on our financial aid website the budgeting tools that we have. I'll show you in a moment our cost of attendance. And then the AAMC is a wonderful resource as well, the Association of American Medical Colleges. They have some tips on budgeting. They have a med loan organizer that is designed specifically for med students. You can download your federal loans. You can enter in private loans and track them. And then they have recalculators that no other website I've seen has. So if you are married, it allows you to include both of your incomes and your loan debt. For med students, it also tells you what the salary ranges are for residency and salary ranges for different specialties. And so when you're trying to estimate repayment and things like that, you can kind of be a little closer to what is reality for med students. And then the past 2 or 3 years, the Department of Ed through studentaid.gov has really stepped up their game, and their website is really strong in terms of details about different loan programs, repayment options, things like that. So definitely check out that website as well. Certainly contact our office, either via phone, email. We can set up Zoom appointments. But I wanted to show you a couple websites. So on our financial aid website, over here is the cost of attendance. And if it'll pull up, we have it for all 4 years of medical school. So if you look at 2020-21, it'll pull up. So we have medical students, graduate students, and undergrad. And then for the AAMC, here they are at AAMC.org. So I thought I would spend some time for questions that you might have.
Scott, could you say when the grace period was after you graduate?
Sure.
For your those,
as long as you have been in school at least half-time. So for med students, it's defined as 1 credit hour. For grad students, it's 5 hours, and undergrad, it's 6 hours. But as long as you're half-time, then the grace period will last 6 months after you graduate for subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, or Grad Plus. If you had something like a Perkins loan from years ago that has a 9-month grace period, there are a couple other programs that students might have that in some cases have 9 or 12-month grace periods, but I would say 6 months is the most common length.
And that's done automatically. They just look at that's done through the school and they say, yeah, this student is enrolled, so we're just going to automatically refresh and not, and we'll just automatically re-enroll them in the current student category.
Yes, our registrar's office will certify this national database called the Student Clearinghouse, and lenders and the federal government have access to this. So I think we update it 3 or 4 times a semester. So those lenders and servicers get that information. Every so often, for some reason, they have maybe an incorrect graduation date, something like that. And so you might start getting repayment information, and at that point, that might be assigned to, you can get what's called a in-school deferment form. So if that information's bad, you can get a document that you can have the registrar's office certify to say, I'm still enrolled half-time, and that'll change the status with the servicer. Or if they need to update the graduation date, the registrar's office can do that as well.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. The AAMC, let me just show a little bit of what they have. And I forgot to mention they also have some webinars. So if you click on this financial wellness, they have First Friday. So the first Friday of every month, they have a webinar on a different topic. And if memory serves me, coming up in October, they have one on credit. Oops, where is that? Where are you, webinars? Here they are, first videos and webinars. And so the upcoming, they do have one, 7 Steps to Increase Your Credit Score, is coming up on this Friday at 12 Central Time. And they encourage you to register. So even if you know, oh, I've got a study group that time, as long as you register, they will send you the recording as soon as they have it processed. But if you forget about it or miss it, they do often save those and put those on the website as well. And then this MedLoan Organizer that I was talking about, where you can do repayment scenarios and track your loans. It's free because the University of Kansas is a member organization. Med students can get that information for free. So it's great to take advantage of that while you're a student. We are going to try to do regular sessions here. So we will have a investing and money management session coming up at noon on October 13th. So we'll have a pre-recorded video with Boone Bradley, who's a professor at the Lawrence School of Business. And so you'll be able to watch that video anytime for about a week prior to the session. And then he'll be available from noon to 1 for a question and answer. So he'll talk about different investing strategies, what are the different products, and then you can ask questions about those items. You can talk about maybe tips and tricks as a resident versus a young professional, things like that. And then be on the lookout in November and beyond. We'll put together our program and hope to see you for as many of those that you can attend. I think right now they'll continue to be via Zoom. And then if things improve, we will try to come down to Wichita and try to come to Salina at least once a semester to do presentations and to meet with you in person. So thank you for your attention and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you so much, Allie, and thank you, John, for making me not have to record to a empty audience. That is always awkward.
Of course.